Good morning. Each time we come together, we ring a bell to remind us that we are in covenant with one another and the world around us. We want to rebuild relationships, including relationships with the past. We invoke and invite the presence of this land's forebears, the Muwekma tribe of the Ohlone people, and ask that we hold in solidarity with them their culture and their future. The second bell calls us into relationship with ourselves and with one another, that we open ourselves to the wisdom of the diverse array of perspectives that broaden and give value and diversity to this circle. We invite each voice until we are all singing the collective covenant of the beloved community. And the third calls us into relationship with our children and our children's children out to the seventh generation, helping us to remember that what we do now or what we fail to do will be felt by those who come after us.
Good morning, Mission Peak. I'm your worship associate for today. And when I saw that Reverend Greg's topic for today was change, and the inevitability of it and need to adapt to it, I was eager to be the worship associate. After all, I have often promoted change here at Mission Peak, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. But when I started writing, my first thoughts were all about the lectures I used to hear from my employers about the need to embrace change, which really meant that they were going to make changes we wouldn't like, but we would have to live with them. The most dreaded was the reorg, which usually did involve changes of reporting structure and sometimes assignments, but also layoffs or dropping of a product that you had been developing for the last couple of years. Yeah, us engineers all know about that one. Or it could involve buying yet another startup, supposedly on the verge of delivering a product that marketing thought we couldn't develop in time ourselves, only to find it was not nearly as close to delivery as the founders of said startup implied. In either case, more pain and suffering for the existing employees. However, it is true that the world doesn't stand still, but constantly changes, so we do need to deal with it. For instance, thermodynamics teaches us that the concept teaches us that entropy is always increasing. What is entropy? Well, it indicates how much organized energy is lost going through a heat engine. So you take gasoline, whose energy is bound up in a highly organized structure of the gasoline molecules, burn it in your car to produce heat, which is very random, high-speed energy, high-speed bouncing air molecules. Your engine turns some of that back into organized mechanical rotational energy, and the rest it exhausts as a lower temperature heat through your radiator, which is not useful anymore. So entropy is kind of a measure of that, and that's also why it's been called the heat death of the universe. Now you can change entropy locally, but at the cost of increasing overall entropy even more. One example of changing entropy then might be cleaning your house now, or organizing it. Now, anyone who's come to my house knows that I embrace conservation of entropy. But still, there are many things I've seen, would like to see, or see happen more quickly. I would like to have the values in our UU principles be more widely adopted. I'd like to see Mission Peak grow so we could promote those values more aggressively, as well as have more activities to share. I'd like COVID-19 to go away. And I've enjoyed being able to hold a computer in my hand that, at the time I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, occupied a whole room and was far less powerful. So change is inevitable, though we can sometimes alter its course for better. But if not, we will need to adapt and may even come to embrace it. Let us hope we are successful at choosing the right path. May it be so.
Each and every Sunday that we gather, we perform a beloved ritual, which is lighting our chalice, that calls us to center on a central promise that we make to ourselves and to one another. Most Sundays, we share the words that were crafted by the children of this congregation. This ritual of chalice lighting is also something that we share in communion with Unitarian Universalists all across the globe. They don't all say the words of our children, but they have their own words which ground them into aspirations. This year, we are calling forth a new set of aspirations once a month, which is taken from our covenant. So today, I ask you to please join me in reciting together these words which make up the seventh aspiration of our covenant. We aspire to a fully shared ministry. To this end, we delegate responsibility with clear requests. We will honor the creativity and autonomy of the person who has taken on a responsibility by allowing them the latitude to meet the objectives their own way.
I also get to say good morning to everyone, so good morning. Welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Gail Tupper, and I'm a member of your board. We are so glad you've joined us this morning. Mission Peak's congregation and Unitarian Universalists in general are people who are coming at truth from different paths. We gather together across different identities, experiences, and beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. If you're our guest for the first time, we welcome you. We use chat in Zoom or our book near the welcome table to share joys and concerns, personal milestones of importance, which will be read aloud during the service. We also typically have social hour after the service, where we get to visit with one another in breakout rooms or on the patio. The worship host will give you more information about this immediately after the service. Annette, our welcoming representative this morning, will put a link in our weekly newsletter in the chat so you can see all the events coming up. Take a look and join anything that speaks to you. We also put our welcome email, welcome@mpuuc.org, to request a newsletter or other information be sent to you. If you're here in person, our welcome table is right over there where you can sign up to receive a newsletter or ask any questions you may have. Now, we have two exciting announcements. First, You already know that our Black and White Gala will be Saturday, February 11th, 2023. We will be contacting you by email to confirm your donation dates and all the offering information. And watch your email to purchase tickets to this online event. For anyone who hasn't attended one of our fundraiser galas yet, it is really worthwhile. Remember, fundraiser begins with fun. And that has always been true of our Black and Whites. They really are fun. I'm also reminding everyone that we are having a very special event after the service today, both in person and online. Yes, it's the baby shower for Stephen and Tiffany. Yay! For those of you online who will be staying for the service, listen up. Make sure to post a line in the chat so that our worship host, David Gibbons, can put you in the right breakout room after the service. So again, if you're going to stay for the shower, send a note to David so he can put you into the right breakout room. We are so glad to be together with each of you today. Thank you all for being here.
Just a quick note about this upcoming hymn. We invite you to stay seated, but feel free to sing along. This is a treat from our own amazing musician, Mark Kahn, who created this version of Bruce Hornsby's The Way It Is.
Time waiting for the welfare dime, 'cause they can't buy a job. The man in the silk suit hurries by and he catches the poor old lady's eyes. Just for fun he says, get a job. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe them? Said, hey little boy, you can go where the others go, 'cause you don't look like they do. Said, hey old man, how can you stand to think that way? Did you really think about it before you made the rules? He said, son, that's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Oh, but don't you believe them? law in '64 to give those who ain't got a little more, but it only goes so far. 'Cause the law don't change another's mind when all it sees at the hiring time is the line on the collar bar. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. It is, it is, it is.
Thank you, Mark. Very impressive. This morning's story for all ages is a story about an older man who lived in a city that some of us can probably imagine. This man was a retired cook. He was also a grandfather, and he lived with his granddaughter. Now, the city that they lived in was big, and like a lot of big cities, it had some major problems. But this man, every day, would go out and go to the heart of town where he had a little cart chained to a post. And from his little cart, he made soup. And he served soup with hot coffee to many of the people who had no food otherwise, or who were cold or had no place to live. Well, the granddaughter, having seen him do this every day and had lived in the city all her life, kept telling her grandfather that she wanted to leave the city, that it was hard and it was dirty and it was sometimes unsafe. She told him the story of the frog and the hot water. You might have heard that story, that if you put a frog in a pot of boiling hot water, it'll jump out right away. But if you put it in a pot of cool water and then slowly increase the temperature, the frog will fail to notice that it is slowly being cooked. She wanted to leave the city because she thought they were being cooked. Her grandfather brought her over to the cart and to his pot of water that he was heating up, that he was going to use to make soup. And on the table next to it, he happened to have some carrots and some eggs and some coffee grounds. He said, "Yes, Melissa, the world is changing. And there are not any of us who are exempt from being thrown in a little hot water from time to time. But the question is, how do we want to respond? Do we want to respond like the carrots, or like the egg, or like the coffee?" And the granddaughter looked up at him and cocked her head and raised her eyebrow in that kind of familiar, impatient, confused look. And so the grandfather went on, "Look, if you put the carrots in hot water, what happens? something that was once hard becomes soft and mushy. If you put the egg in hot water, what was hard on the outside and soft on the inside becomes hard inside and out. But the coffee, when you put it in hot water, it actually changes the water. And then he put a cup in front of her, and she could smell the aroma, which she liked. And she smiled. So which do you want to be? He asked her. When change is all around you and you find yourself in hot water, what will you do? People who understand their purpose aren't afraid of a little hot water. They actually seek it out because they know what they were made for. And that is a story worth telling.
Well, as you obviously have heard, the subject of this week's message is change, as in things don't stay the same. However, another kind of change consists of the coins and bills in our pockets or wallets. Mission Peak could definitely use some of those. Thus, we take up a collection on Sundays for the simple reason that we can see the world as in a little hot water, and we want to find our purpose in this moment. We want to be change agents for the world by providing ministries that are needed. We want to diffuse worth and dignity into the people who gather here and infuse a sense of purpose into our children, our youth, and our leaders who come to serve. Okay. If you are here in Cole Hall, you can just put a check in the mails, in the plates which are coming around. Hello, as I am about to demonstrate. Or cash. We hope that you will, if you're online or don't have your checkbook or cash with you, you can mail your check to Mission Peak Congregation at the address on the screen. You can also use the bill pay option in your online banking or drop your check into the Mission Peak mail slot, or pay online with a credit or debit card. We hope you will, Thank you for supporting and sustaining the efforts of our members, friends, and staff. Your contributions make loving, learning, and leadership more possible.
One of the things that allows us to find hope and meaning, especially when things get a little dicey or we're in hot water, is the supports and care and comfort we show one another. If you have a joy or concern that by sharing with this caring community might bring a measure of hope or resilience because it is held by more hearts than just your own, we invite you, if you are with us online, to put it in the chat, or if you are here in person, to, as Graham was just doing, put it in our book. And we will read them aloud so that we can all hold that joy or concern with you. If your need is more personal, we invite you to send a note to either myself or Reverend Barbara for a follow-up conversation. If you would like to place a stone in our stone garden for a silent joy or concern, we invite you to do that while the music is playing. I want to give you a word about this piece of music that we're going to play. And also, love and care goes out this morning to Jessica Steele, who was supposed to be singing, as she usually does with Jay, but it was not feeling very well today. So Jay is going to be singing for us. And the song he's going to be singing is Everything is Possible. It is a song from our hymnal. It's by the minister Fred Small. And it was written many years ago when his daughter came home from school one day in tears, and she had noticed that all of her cohort of friends who had been her entire life very affectionate, very kind, and used to give hugs, had now moved into a different phase of their relationship with one another where they were actually teasing and a little callous, and they actually began to hit and exclude one another. And she was in tears because she didn't know what to do, that everything was changing. So he wrote her this song. This song is now sung by groups all over the world, including the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, who sing it whenever a new member of the chorus is welcomed into the group. He explains that it does have binary language in it, but that it was written so long ago that he didn't necessarily want to change it, and he hopes that the inclusive message of the song will outweigh the limited perspective of the time.
We've cleared off the table, leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whoever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can never ends about. You can choose one, special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you left behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go about their own way in time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all a day of reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by tongues, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whoever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends about, you can choose one, special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the ones you left behind when you're done.
Thank you so much, Jay. These are the joys and concerns that are alive in our hearts this week. For all of those in our community who are asking if they can still give, of course you can still give. to the gala, to the auction, to the community at large. Any creative endeavor that spreads love is always welcome. We're, of course, always praying for the 49ers. And it should never go without saying that we're always praying for the Warriors as well. We pray that everybody, just by being patient and understanding and opening our hearts, we can all have a second Christmas, no matter what day of the year it is. May these be our prayers and our promises that keep our hearts, our minds, our arms, and our doors open. Please join with me in the spirit of this reading. This is a reading by Unitarian minister Robert Fulghum, who you might know wrote many books. One is Everything I Always Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. This is from his second book called It Was on Fire When I Laid Down on It. It is called Belum. Americans, it is observed, prefer definite answers. Let your yea be yea or your nay be nay. Yes or no. No grays, please. In Indonesia, there is a word in common use that nicely works around the need for black and white. Belum is the word, and it means not quite yet. A lovely word implying continuing possibility. Do you speak English? Belum, not quite yet. Do you have any children? Belum, not quite yet. Do you know the meaning of life? Belum. It is considered both impolite and cynical in Indonesian culture to say no outright. This leads to some funny moments. Is the house on fire? Belum, not quite yet. It's an attitude akin to that old joke, do you play the violin? I don't know, I have never tried. Perhaps, maybe, possibly, not yes or no, but squarely in the realm of what might be. Soft edges are welcome in the great bus ride of human adventure. Is this the best of all possible worlds? Belum. Is the world coming to an end? Belum. Will we live happily ever after? Belum. Have we learned to live in harmony with nature? Belum. Have we learned to live in peace without needs for weapons of mass destruction? Belum. Have we learned to love people, even the ones we don't always like? Belum. In some ways, we don't know. We've never tried. Is it hopeless to think that we might someday try? Belum. Not quite yet.
Hello? No. Unfortunately, Jessica couldn't sing her song today. We'll save that for another service. Impromptu, I'm going to play a piece from Duke Ellington, Take the A Train. Some of you folks that have the blessing of more years than I do may remember this song from Duke Ellington. I like to think of it as reminiscent of a time where pop music was a little bit more complicated musically than it is today, for good or for worse.
That is pretty remarkable, Jay. Like many of the stories that I tell you, this one begins a long time ago. When I was 5, my first year in kindergarten. My parents were struggling with what would end up as divorce, and in the midst of it came my babysitter, telling me that she was leaving to go to college. It was just one too many changes, and I lost it. Why? Why are you going? There's something I want to explain to you, something important, but I can't. You'll figure it out in time. But I want to know now. Why can't you tell me now? My question was why she had to go halfway across the country instead of attending one of the dozens of colleges that were close to home. You wouldn't understand, she said. Things will change for you someday and it will all make sense. But I don't want things to change. Someday you might look forward to change. I don't want to change. You will. Why? What's wrong with me the way that I am? Nothing is wrong with you, but do you want to be 5 years old forever? This one stumped me, and I was silent. Someday it will make sense to you, she said. No, it won't, I protested. Then I will come back and explain it to you. But she never did. There is a theory that all ministers have two things in common. The first is that we all had sadistic babysitters who frustrated us with unresolved questions, which led us into professions where we could systematically turn the tables and return the favor and frustrate other people in our care with those same unresolved questions. As far as the UUA knows, this is true. The second thing is that all ministers have a love-hate relationship with change. We want people to know that they are good and that we love them just the way they are, and that we also want them to change. And that's confusing and hard. It is said that the only thing that ever wants change is a wet baby. That said, I have personally met a number of people in this world who have grown quite accustomed to living in dirty diapers. We avoid change, brace ourselves for change. The only time we recommend change is when we notice someone looks so bad that we say, oh, a change will do you good. Those who resist change are often the recipients of praise. I remember when I was in Atlanta, a common phrase used among people reuniting was, well, look at you, you haven't changed a bit. Bless your heart. Lucky for us, we all fail to notice the majority of change going on around us all the time. Otherwise, we'd be nervous wrecks. For instance, think how safe we'd feel if we happened to notice that the Earth is spinning at a surface level of just over 1,000 miles per hour, and that we are hurtling through space around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour. And think how we'd feel if we realized that every single minute we are losing 30 to 40,000 skin cells, and that every 3 days our entire outer layer of skin is completely replaced. And since dead skin cells are the major component of household dust, every time we dust, we are wiping ourselves up and throwing ourselves away. Sometimes it's better not to think about all the change that we're part of. But sometimes it isn't. W.E. Deming was an American statistician who revolutionized modern manufacturing in the 1950s when he worked for the Ford Motor Company. Ford at the time was resisting his call for innovation and change, so he decided to leave America and go to Japan and work in their auto industry, which is one of the reasons, with all that innovation that he introduced, that Japanese auto industry emerged as the world leader in the 1970s and 80s. He fit his thoughts about change into 2 sentences. He said, "It is not necessary to change. After all, survival is not mandatory." I want to talk this morning a little bit about a book that came out some years back that became a bestseller. You may have heard of it. You may have even read it. It was called Who Moved My Cheese? Anybody read that? A couple people. It was a short fable that I can encapsulate very quickly about 2 mice, Sniff and Scurry, and 2 little people, Hem and Haw, who were trapped in a maze, all looking for cheese. The mice used instinct, adaptability, and resilience to search for the cheese in the maze. The little people used their more powerful brains. They used beliefs and emotion, logic, and rationale in their search. Now, as the fable begins, all 4 start out in the maze until after only a short amount of time, they come across a whole lot of cheese, and they are ecstatic. The place becomes known as Cheese Station C. They go there, they eat their fill, and they go home. When they go back the next day, they are excited to see all the cheese is still there. And again, they eat and they get full and they go home, and nothing changes that day or the next day or the next. Pretty soon, expectations develop and habits form. A groove gets worn in the path from their homes to Cheese Station C. It becomes their path. They don't get as excited on subsequent mornings to find the cheese still there at Cheese Station C. They've come to expect it. In fact, they get up a little later each day. They get to the cheese and they take off their shoes. They eat more cheese. They fall asleep. They waddle home and do it all again. Their lives become a little more predictable, a little bit more comfortable. Then one day, everything changes for the 4 of them. They arrive at Cheese Station C, just like any other day, but the cheese is gone. The mice, Sniff and Scurry, notice this. They look at one another. They size up the situation, and immediately they go back out into the maze and look for more cheese. But the book is not about the mice. The book is about us, Hem and Haw, and how our sophisticated brains deal with change. Hem and Haw stand before the emptiness of their beloved Cheese Station C in disbelief. "This is impossible," they say. "There's always been cheese here." And then they start screaming, "Who moved my cheese?" Hem and Haw had decided that it was their cheese. They talked about how unfair this was and how much more deserving they were for this cheese than anyone else on account of them having worked so hard to find it in the first place. They talked about wanting compensation for the cheese that had been taken from them. Restitution. Wasn't there someone they could sue? After a while, Haw began to wonder if, well, maybe they shouldn't just accept that there was no more cheese and go back to looking for more cheese in the maze. Well, Hem said that that was unthinkable. Why should he have to change? After all, he wasn't the one who made all the cheese go away. On my first day as chaplain at Toronto General Hospital, my supervisor told me one of the most valuable pieces of information I ever learned about ministry and life in general. It was about the worst of all imaginable diseases in Western culture. It wasn't heart disease. It wasn't cancer. Its primary symptoms were outrage, anger, self-absorption, and contempt for anyone who tried to take what was rightfully theirs. It came up a lot because a lot of people felt like somehow someone had taken their good health. He ended up giving this disease a name. He called it GIDE, G-I-D-E, which stood for Grandiose Infantile Demands of Entitlement. Demands of entitlement are what make change so hard. When we think about how long it has taken in this country to change systems of racism or sexism or classism or homophobia or ableism, the main reason is entitlement. People who feel entitled, the people in control, too often feel justified, even morally empowered to keep in place the system that supports their entitlement. If you didn't know before what white supremacy is, now you know. Even when the issue of entitlement isn't at work, there is still another major hurdle before we adopt change. We have to be willing to return to the discomfort of uncertainty. We have to be willing to start over and figure out what's next instead of just going about our habits of the status quo. When Ha raised the issue of going back out into the maze, Hem replied very plainly, he'd rather keep returning to Cheese Station C. More cheese was bound to show up. Well, anyone who's read the book knows that Ha sticks around for a while, but eventually he tries to leave Hem. And each time he does, he is ridiculed by Hem. We're too old for this, Hem says. Do you want to go out and look like a fool running around in the maze? Wait here with me until they put the cheese back. You'll just get lost out there in the maze. Sometimes we can find ourselves in systems where change is so feared it is actually ridiculed or punished. Let me share with you an example of a well-known behavioral experiment. 5 apes were placed in a cage. In the center of the cage, there were a set of stairs which led up to a banana which was hanging down from the ceiling by a string. Before long, one of the 5 apes noticed that the banana was there and went over to climb the stairs, but as soon as his foot touched the stairs, all the apes were sprayed with cold water. After a while, another ape made an attempt to get the banana. Same result. As soon as his foot touched the stairs, all the apes were sprayed with cold water. As soon as the spraying of cold water became an expectation, scientists turned off the water. Still, however, they found that when another ape tried to climb the stairs, the other apes would try to prevent it, even though no water was spraying them. They next removed one of the 5 apes from the cage and replaced it with a new ape. Seeing the banana, the new ape would try to climb the stairs, and to his horror, all the other apes attacked him. Another attempt, another attack, and before long he knew that if he tried to climb the stairs, he would get beaten up. Next, they removed another of the original 5 apes and replaced it with a new ape. The newcomer goes to the stairs and is attacked. The previous newcomer takes part in the punishment with enthusiasm. Again, one of the original apes is replaced with a new one. The new one makes it to the stairs and is attacked. 2 of the 4 apes that beat him up have no idea why they are not permitted to climb the stairs or why they are participating in the punishment of this new ape. After replacing the 4th and the 5th of the original apes, all the apes who were originally sprayed with the cold water have been replaced. Nevertheless, no ape ever again is allowed to approach the stairs. And after a while, none of them even try, even though none of them has been sprayed with cold water. Why not? Because that's how we've always done it here. And if you want to know what are the 7 last words of a dying church, that's how we've always done it here. Who moved your cheese? Why am I even talking about change at all? 4 reasons. First, the last 3 to 5 years here have been a crash course in change. Much of it uncomfortable, where change was not optional. Masks and COVID protocol, and having to get used to all these different ministers. But the real lesson to be learned is not about who stands in the pulpit. It's about what stands in the way of us standing as a united people. It's about what we stand for and the injustice out in the world that we won't stand for. If even for a second we allow ourselves to think that our unhappiness stems from one member or one minister or one decision that was made or even one virus, then we have thrown out our highest aspirations. We aspire to a fully shared ministry. We share and delegate our responsibilities. We honor the creative autonomy of each person who takes them on, and we allow them latitude to meet objectives in the best way they know how. It's important for you to know, if it's uncomfortable for you, it's probably uncomfortable to the person who makes a change. So the change that's really needed is sometimes just a little grace and a little love. I will tell you that congregations for centuries have survived mean ministers and tough transitions and painful pandemics with nothing but grace and love. We can do that here if we become the change we want to see. Second reason, look around you. Is there anyone here today who wasn't here 5 years ago? Raise your hand. And I invite you online to also raise your hand and keep your hands up. Now, raise your hand, anyone in the last 5 years who took on a new leadership position during that time, tried something new. Keep your hands up. Anyone out there in the world see all the trouble in the world and thought that they should be part of the solution rather than the problem? Raise your hand. Do you want to know who moved your cheese? All the people raising their hand moved your cheese. The third reason that I'm talking about change is because we are in a church. So many people today have the mistaken notion that being part of a church is finding refuge, an enclave of like-minded people who provide sanity and security. And the church represents something stable and unmovable in a sea of change. And if we just remain steadfast to our principles and our ways, then at least our gods, or lack thereof, will be happy, and all will be well in the heavens. That is not church. That is organized denial. And the worst part about it is that it denies the very heart of what real religious communities stand for, which is transformation. We come into religious community not for comfort, but to be moved to our best selves. We come to be lifted out of the mental and spiritual and emotional ruts that eventually lead to uninspired lives. We come, as the saying goes, to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable, always looking for a way to move from what we had been to what we can be. That's what this church is here to do. And fourth, I talk about change because of who we are. Unitarian Universalist historian Barry Whittemore describes Unitarian Universalism as, quote, part of a 2,000-year-old Jewish reform movement. The only difference between us and other religions is that we have never stopped reforming. The need for religious reformation wasn't over when the Jews rebuilt the temple. It wasn't over when Jesus was born or after the Sermon on the Mount or when he was crucified. It wasn't over when Martin Luther tacked up the treaties on the doors of Wittenberg or when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life for civil rights. It won't be over until Black lives actually do matter and until we learn to stand together, brothers and sisters and those beyond the binary, Black and white, gay and straight, Christian, Jew, Muslim, agnostic, and atheist, celebrating that love and justice are part of the promise that we are all called to deliver. And until that day, we are all called to be reformers and change agents still. So let us ask ourselves honestly, have I become the person that I always wanted to be? Has the world found all the truth that there is to find? Is there enough love, enough kindness, enough friends, enough places to turn in the hard times? These are the questions that we all came to Mission Peak to think about. And inevitably, invariably, our answer to such questions is the same. Belum. Not quite yet. This mixed up, crazy, wonderful world is not done changing, and neither are we. So listen up. There is something I need to tell you, and it's what I've been trying to tell you since I have arrived here. It's what my babysitter was planning on telling me one day. And it is the wisdom captured in the title of a very popular old play. I love you. You're perfect. Now change. We are about the work of finding tomorrow's cheese because as time marches on, none of us wants to be 5 years old forever. My greatest prayer for us as we carry this work forward and prepare this community to open up and reach out to the people of the city is that we become the change that's needed. That we do it for ourselves and for our children and for our future. And most of all, we do it so that no one who knows us today, no one who is sitting in this room right now comes back after a month or a year or 10 years and throws down that old, worn out Southern compliment, "Oh, you haven't changed a bit." For what a slap in the face that is for truly religious people like us who carry the world's hopes alive in their hearts. May it be so, to the glory of life.
Oh, are we on? Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. Where I'm bound. Hallelujah.
While we extinguish our chalice. Hello, words above my head. Okay. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, one hand on your heart, the other reaching out to the heart of the world around us. Remember, and let us be the change the world is needing to see. And let us go where that change is needed the most. And may every action be an act of love for the sake of ending the suffering of the people and the planet that we all share. May this be our promise today. Amen.